The Middle East, a geography where even minutes, not days or hours, are of critical importance. Rebellion, war, blood and tears. We are witnessing very important moments in this geography where time flows fast. Late at night, the Assad regime collapsed as a result of the ongoing operations of the Syrian opposition groups. Now, if you are ready, here are the latest developments. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more content and leave your feedback in the comments.
Welcome to Conflict Diary. We share critical developments and the latest updates from conflict zones around the world. When the guns start firing, words become meaningless. If you're ready, let's begin reporting on what's happening in the shadows of war.
The Ba'athist regime, which had been in power in Syria for 61 years, officially collapsed overnight after a week of developments. The whereabouts of ousted leader Bashar al-Assad have been unknown since the night. The Prime Minister of the collapsed regime announced that the ousted leader Assad has disappeared. The 13-year civil war in Syria has led to many conflicts, loss of life and property. Millions of Syrians had to migrate because of the civil war. The balance sheet of the civil war was quite heavy. After the Syrian opposition against the Assad regime started armed struggle, many groups became active in Syria. Developments throughout the process made it seem that the war had become chronic. But in the last week, the Syrian opposition has made incredible progress. The Assad regime collapsed in a week. Russia, the US, Iran and other actors are out of the picture. We will see what will happen in Latakia, which Russia has been using as a base. After the fall of the Assad regime, the Syrian opposition declared December 8th as a national holiday. The Russian Foreign Ministry said in a statement that Bashar al-Assad has left Syria, leaving his post. Syria's capital Damascus was under the rule of Bashar al-Assad until last night. The Bashar al-Assad regime lost control of the city as protesters and opposition groups entered key neighborhoods. In Syria, armed opposition groups started to enter from the south of Damascus, forcing the regime forces to retreat. Demonstrators started rioting in many parts of the capital Damascus in the evening. During a very active night, regime forces withdrew from the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Interior and Damascus International Airport. The Assad regime was left helpless as demonstrators entered these critical points. In Damascus, the Sednaya prison, which is synonymous with the Ba'ath regime and notorious for its torture, was captured by the opposition. The opposition liberated all the prisoners held in the prison. As the Syrian regime lost control of the capital Damascus, the whereabouts of Bashar al-Assad became an even bigger question mark. A flight between Damascus and Latakia brought about various allegations on social media. When the Assad regime lost control of the capital Damascus, allegations that Assad left Damascus on a plane became a hot topic. Online flight tracking websites claimed that an airplane carrying Bashar al-Assad was last seen west of Homs after taking off from the airport in Damascus but then disappeared. The plane allegedly descended to an altitude of 1,600 feet and made unusual movements before disappearing from radar. Russia has maintained close relations with the Damascus administration since the early days of the war. Russia, which has been involved in many critical processes in the region, has remained indifferent to the latest developments. Russia even had a military base in Syria. Assad's options in the face of recent developments were quite limited. Russia and Iran, which had displayed an allied approach, did not provide any support after the start of the opposition's counterattacks. Russia's air support was critical for the Damascus regime, but Moscow did not take any steps in this regard. Russia has been very cautious about developments in Syria since the beginning of the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine, though perhaps to a lesser extent than in Ukraine, is taking its toll on Russian manpower and Russia's economy. With the removal of Wagner's active role by Russian President Vladimir Putin himself in 2023, Moscow no longer has the power to intervene in conflicts far from its primary interest. Part of the reason for Russia's reluctance to defend Aleppo is the dynamics of global politics. All these factors combined have left the Damascus government quite isolated against the Syrian opposition. It remains to be seen to what extent and how Russia will be involved in the redesign of Syria. What awaits Syria now? Turkey is perhaps the country most affected by the Syrian civil war. Ankara had offered negotiations to the Damascus administration in the past months. Damascus, however, did not approach the issue. The Turkish-backed Syrian opposition then launched operations. Turkey is the most powerful and stable state in the region. It hosts millions of Syrian refugees who fled their country due to the war. As such, it has become one of the most important actors in the future and redesign of Syria. Turkey supports the opposition that toppled the Damascus regime. Turkish officials state that the reconstruction of Syria should be done by Syrians through democratic methods. Syrians who took refuge in countries in the region have started to return home. The developments in Syria mark the beginning of a new era for both Syria and the Middle East. We will continue to report the developments. Stay tuned.